Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football Podcast. I'm Joe Devine and I'm delighted to be joined by Seb Halford's Floor. Hi Seb.
Hey Joe Devine.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
JJ Bull the Bullet.
Oh, you with the energy. Look at this.
That's right. Always bringing the energy to the Tifo Football Podcast. And goodness me, I didn't need to bring it today, JJ, because the football brought the energy. Wow.
It revived something within you.
It revived something within me that was dormant from this morning, but it was also alive last night during the yellow cards debacle. That
Much
was
like the
exciting.
fairy fountains in Legend of Zelda.
Absolutely.
It has restored all your heart's
Exactly like that.
icons.
And do you know exactly what it is that's restored all of my heart icons?
Well,
Japan beating Spain. Good Lord. Yeah? Very exciting stuff. There was 5 minutes today, maybe slightly longer. Seb, you'll tell me, maybe slightly less. When Costa Rica and Japan were going through and Spain and Germany were going out. Now, you can't have everything you want, but at least we've got half of it.
Yeah, so that was the point at which I was live blogging one game and trying to stand in the middle of the room and watch another at the same time.
Yes.
And I just passed out, I think, during that period because it felt like a minute, but also an hour at the same time. It's a very confusing period for me this evening.
It is confusing for you, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, anyway, never mind.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, when I say what I want, I do mean Japan and Costa Rica qualifying as opposed to Spain and Germany going out. It's always funny when a big team goes out, as you constantly remind me when England lose. It's funny
Exactly.
if you aren't a supporter.
I think you got to see it from my side of
I
the
can
world
see it.
today.
I can see it from your side. But I think we all agree that seeing Japan go through is very, very exciting. And, I suppose unless you are a fan of Germany. But we'll talk about that more. What else are we going to talk about on today's podcast? Canada and Morocco. Morocco going through top of that group. Tremendous work there. Croatia and Belgium. Yes, we'll come to talk about that a little bit later. And of course, there's points are bad later on the show too. But did you enjoy yourself today, JJ?
I had a lovely time.
Yeah.
I watched the football and I thought it was a good day
Well,
to be alive.
I mean, if you like being alive, you should get theathletic.com. Theathletic.com/Tifo. Theathletic.com/Tifo. Only available to people who are alive. I mean, I guess, I don't know. There could be a spooky element to it, couldn't there? But it's not Halloween. That's past now. But if you were alive, you can read all the live blogs, or you can read all of the excellent pieces of work written by the numerous exceptional journalists that work in this building. Not us. The very, very good people, the people at the top of their game, the people who are writing things that inspire, that inform, that educate, and that delight. Theathletic.com/Tifo, theathletic.com/Tifo. But for now, I will leave you in the warm hands and the cool embrace of Japan. Yes, Spain won to Japan. Didn't write that down in the plan, so I had to think that one off the top of my head, but it was 1-2. This was very, very exciting, as discussed. Seb obviously live blogged the Germany game, so we'll spend most of the time here talking to JJ. But JJ, you noticed halfway through the first half, Japan changed their approach within the game. And whilst they won the game in the second half, it was with that change of approach that really kind of changed things.
Well, they had to change because Spain had them. Spain were playing lovely football. They played like a 4-3-3. This is roughly what the teams look like. If you're looking on the live stream, you can see. But they play a 4-3-3 and they make the pitch nice and big, but they also keep lots of players close together. So they've got lots of ways to pass the ball around. And they just had Japan stuck back and they couldn't do anything. They couldn't get out of their own half for most of the first half, about 25 minutes in.
Yeah.
And then what Spain...
A lot of parallels with the Germany game.
Well, this is the thing, because the same thing. Japan were forced deeper, so they were sat back in a. Well, they played a 5-4-1 to start with in this game, and I think they were a different shape, like more a 4-2-3-1. I think in the first half of the Germany game, but they started with a 5-4-1. And they were sat back in this big block, and so everything they had to do would be the counter, but it didn't matter because Spain just had them outnumbered. They had everyone in their half. Pedri and Gavi pulling strings, Busquets even dancing around, and Azpilicueta, Rodri, Pau Torres, and Alex Balde. And they would swap around positions. You'd get people overloading one side, and suddenly you'd get an overload in the middle. It was amazing to watch. And the change that Japan made was to start pressing them much higher. As simple as that. So then Spain are pushed slightly deeper, and because they want to play out from the back, it's a very high risk, high reward kind of situation. But if you can stop them from getting into your half, then you can try and pick them off, and that's what they did. They just started the press much higher up the pitch. They were able to stop the ball going to the places that Spain wanted them to get. And then you had Busquets making risky decisions. They were chasing the ball onto the goalkeeper, and then he was getting caught with it and having to put it out for a throw-in. And it just changed the dynamic of the game because Spain were in total control for, like I'd say, a large part of that half. And that change in approach, the change in aggression and pressing, and when they're pressing and how quickly they're doing it, just changed it.
Yeah, okay, fine. I mean, the Japan coach Moriyasu, he was praised in earlier games in this tournament for making sort of key substitutions. He seemed to do it again in this game.
Yes, let me remember to myself who came on. So at halftime, it was Duan came on. So Ritsu Duan and Kaoru Mitoma.
Duan, who is like so far, and his technique with the ball at his feet is incredible, isn't he? He's the Freiburg player, right?
Yes, he is. Yeah. And then later on they had Asano came on. He was the guy that played up top against Germany and was really dangerous. So they put a lot of pace on. So they got this guy Ito who plays in the right wing back who's really, really good, really quick, and he was a constant threat throughout. Up front in this game they started with Kamada Maida. Maida plays for Celtic and he likes to run in behind. Couldn't do it because Spain wouldn't let him get the ball. And Takefuso Kubo, who is a very tricky left-footed kind of player, a bit like he's called Japanese Messi, he's been called it that in the past. He was on the books at Barcelona as a youth player, and then they had a bit of an issue with player registrations to do with signing players who were too young. I can't remember what the rule was.
Yeah, they were in breach of the regulations.
That's the one. They did something bad. And then he went to Real Madrid for a bit, but he's now playing, I think, for La Real, and he's Real Sociedad.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. He was at Malaga not Malaga, sorry. He was at Mallorca for a little bit and then he moved on. Yeah.
A really tidy player, but just couldn't really have the impact you want because you don't need players who can work in tight spaces. What you want is pace in behind, which you get from Ito, which you get from Duan, which you get from other lads came on who I've forgotten. Asano, yes, that's good. That's the good one. So they gave themselves lots of pace. Spain pass, and they try and keep the tempo so that they're in control of it. But as soon as they lose control of the ball and don't have control of the game, suddenly the odds are in favour of Japan. But the same thing that happened against Japan is happening against Germany. They basically did them in like a 5-10 minute flurry. Yeah. So they score one and there's riding momentum. So the 48th minute is the first goal by Duan. And then the 51st minute is when they score the second. And it's just that change of momentum that Spain is like, whoa, this is how it's happened. They're pushed back on the ropes and then Japan go for them. They don't let them go.
Immediately after the first goal and then again after the second goal, it was all Japan, right? I mean, like Spain seemed a loss. And there are two different ways of approaching this, Seb. We know that you didn't watch this game specifically, but you saw Japan, Germany.
Yep.
You saw Germany, Spain, right? So the two different takes from this game are Japan now. The only game they lost is to Costa Rica, right? Who we know play in a deeper block and they struggled to unlock them. When they are playing in transition against a team that has most of the ball, they clearly do very well. That's point number one. Point number two, Spain have now twice looked extremely dominant in the first half of the game. Almost so much that, as JJ says, they totally controlled the game. And then they lost it. They kind of fell apart. That the same sort of thing happened against Germany as well. They let the opposition team back in. And that's kind of I think we said at the time, that's the difference between this Spain team and the Spain teams of the past that we all remember.
Yeah, it's kind of the illusion of control, isn't it? Because like those Spain teams of the past that you describe, like when they had the ball, it never felt as if they were vulnerable to any sort of press because they had arguably the three finest possession players in the world at the same time at the heart of their midfield. The other thing about Japan, Joe, and this is an observation from the first game rather than tonight because I haven't seen enough of it, is just that you talked about that transitional quality. Great point, absolutely. They've got a lot of players on the bench who can come in and do different things as well on the transition as well. So I think what you have is kind of a perpetually fresh transition team, which is kind of interesting and I mean, in a World Cup which is squeezed between two halves of a domestic season when everyone's knackered, that must be a nightmare. That must be very difficult.
Definitely part of the plan. I think it's part of the game plan. There's a reason they're leaving those really quick lads on until later in the game. So you can take advantage of teams who are slightly more tired. You see how tired people do look, and they're also playing 10 minutes extra a game.
Yeah.
So that must be part of it.
This is so going to come up, by the way, because we were just checking who was going to play who in the next round. Japan played Croatia. Now, we've described Croatia before.
That's really interesting.
I think it really is. Like, we've described them before as a team, regardless of how good you think they are, whether some of their players are a little on the older side or not. Croatia are a team you do not want to face in the World Cup. They have the ball all the time. They have all the experience. They know how to grind a game down into the depths. But against Japan, I don't know what to think about that. I mean, I feel like that might be the perfect game for Japan.
I totally agree. So they play in not a dissimilar way to Spain. I mean, it actually kind of is because Spain are very unique in that they play like it's a club football game. They play like Guardiola's Barcelona or Enrique's Barcelona, I suppose.
I mean, Croatia's possession is slower, isn't it? The movement of the ball.
Yeah, and they rely on playing it a lot through the middle, so they don't have pace out wide. So like Spain have players like Olmo and Williams they started with against Japan, who are really quick and can get in behind, so they've got that a way to stretch the pitch. Whereas what Croatia have on the left is Ivan Perisic, who's not quite as quick as once he was. He's about 33.
Yeah.
And on the right, they're playing not Kramaric. Was it Kramaric tonight? I can't remember who started. Not tonight. Yesterday they played, wasn't it?
Yeah, Kramaric played.
Whoever it was. They play one guy out wide who's not a fast boy, and they play a striker through the middle. So they haven't got the same way of stretching the pitch. They tended to in the past, have relied on the fullbacks getting up to provide your width. So the right back plays for Celtic, Juranovic, and the left back is Soma. Is that his name? Sosa?
Oh, Borna Sosa from Stuttgart.
That's the one, Sosa, yeah. So and they're both good players, and they can both get forward and provide the width. But you need width to be able to play through the middle and have space in the middle of the pitch for the midfield to play. And then you've got Brozovic, Modric, and Kovacic, who are very, very good, and they keep the ball and they kind of spin round in a little carousel all the way through. They pop up all over the pitch, give you an overload on the left if you want to, or sometimes they'll just keep the middle of the pitch. But what they'll do is they can't play as high a line as they might want to because Japan rely on that. That's how they get in behind. So if Japan can sort of lure them into so when they defend Japan, they sit very deep, and then it's kind of like a block. So they'll have if they press in this kind of pentagon shape where they have a forward at the top, then they have two midfielders, then they have a forward at the top, and you get a wide forward either side of them. That's very common in football. We see that a lot in club football, international football. That's how you press with this sort of shape because you can then trap people in the middle of it. And they can't pass out of it. That's what you do higher up the pitch. When they go deep, it changes to more of a straight 5-4-1, and then they just block the play. So the striker can lead the play either left or right, depending on where he curves his run. And then the rest of the team just blocks it. The wing back pushes up to help create an overload on the other side. And then they squash any attacks and deny space. So Croatia can't really play through them. They don't really have pace in behind to be able to play over the top. So especially if Japan are sitting deep. Well, this is actually really relevant because against Spain, they couldn't sit too high up because you've got Morata, Olmo and Williams who can get in behind. So they've got to sit really deep in a really deep block. But against Croatia, they could probably afford to be a little bit higher up because they'd have more of a time to get back before they can transition. So that might be something that you see different in that game.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, listen, we asked the live chat before the podcast began, how far can Japan go? We gave a little poll out there. The options are around a 16 quarterfinal, semi-finals, or final stroke winner, because we're only allowed 4. Quarterfinals has 53% of the vote. So presuming that at least a number of the people who responded to the poll knew that they were going to play Croatia, there's a fair amount of confidence in the live chat today that Japan can beat Croatia. 7% say semi-finals, 14% say finals or winners. Yeah? Wouldn't that be fun?
I like how it's a total difference in styles and that like Japan have good players as well, but the difference in styles is really interesting to me in that you can win a game in many different ways, and often the most efficient way to win is not by having the ball.
Yeah.
So if you don't have to, if you're not the one in charge making the mistakes, you're more likely to be able to score. I'm having a similar sort of problem just now with my Wrexham save in Football Manager, actually.
What's the problem?
I've got all the possession, creating chances, but I'm just not breaking teams down enough. So I'm trying to withdraw a little bit so I can hit them quicker, more direct.
Yes.
And get through them and in behind.
Right,
which is what Spain do really well.
How are you doing in your Wrexham save?
Very well. I'm doing pretty well in League 2 now, qualified. I won the National League.
You got congratulated by our new friend Humphrey Carr for that, didn't you?
Well, that's because I messaged Humphrey on Twitter to tell him that I've won the league with Wrexham.
He was being polite. I mean, you know.
Humphrey Carr is the director of Wrexham. And I am a 37-year-old man messaging him about winning the league with a fictional football.
Cool guy.
Yeah, I'm a good guy.
Real cool guy. Okay, well, listen, I think, as I said, it goes without saying, although I have said it now twice, we're all delighted for Japan. But Seb Stafford Bloor on Halford's floor. Let's talk about Germany, okay?
Go on then. Yep.
First off, what is the equivalent of Halford's in Germany?
Probably Baumarkt.
Baumarkt?
Yeah, so Baumarkt is your local sort of outdoor DIY.
Yeah. Your kind of B&Q, your home
Yeah, so
base.
like we have one. I mean, there's quite a few different chains. There's more
You
than
have
one available.
one.
So
you own a franchise
I
of
do not own a
Baumgart.
franchise of Baumarkt.
Right.
No, it's
Would you consider that, though?
no
Healthy
it's-
business?
No, probably not.
Not a healthy business?
No,
Well,
I mean,
we're learning a lot of
maybe
things
it depends
here.
on the climate. I mean, Baumarkt just means garden center, really.
Yeah.
So you have different variations of it. So I live close to one version. There's a Another shop whose name I cannot remember because it's late and I'm
Well, while you're
tired.
thinking about that, let me ask you this, JJ. When you were a wee nipper, little child, there,
Yes.
did you think, as I did, that garden centres would be more exciting than they actually are? They seem exciting. You seem like when you go to one, you think,
They are
there's going to be a lot of
exciting.
things here. They're exciting
No,
as an adult. Oh, as an adult. But as a child, they seem more thrilling. And then actually they're just full of soil.
You mean the idea of the garden centre?
The promise of it, yeah. The promise of the reveal of the garden centre.
Isn't that often the way with many things that
It is.
the promise is so much more?
It
I
is.
remember B&Q being a very exciting place to go as a child because there were so many things.
That is an exciting place to go.
Yeah.
The Baumgart, the sort of the home store, is very exciting as an adult, though. I like to buy sort of baking dishes and stuff. Get
Yes.
very carried away with the high quality pizza slices, that sort of
Me
thing.
and my sisters would sometimes take the price label off of one item and put it over another, so people thought they were buying something for a different
wee
price.
jape.
Whoa! Oh, what? And then you didn't buy it for the cheaper price. You
I
left
don't
it
buy
in
it.
the
I mean, I
store.
would have been about 8.
So your
and
only
Emily would have
aim
been
there
5.
was chaos.
Yeah.
I can understand
See
the
where it
thieves
came
as well.
from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got
I
to
get the motivation.
find your fun somehow when you're an 8-year-old in B&Q.
Well,
In
speaking of
Aberdeen.
finding fun, Germany are going to have to try quite hard to find fun, of course, because this is not only out on the group stages, Seb. This is out on the group stages for 2 World Cups in a row. I mean, and I would imagine in Germany that's a cause for concern.
Yes, that is root and branch territory, I'd imagine, for the
Yes.
DFB. This was a disaster. I think what would...
Should we contextualize a bit and say, obviously, no one expected, not no one, but very few people expected Japan to win, and we will see plenty of other teams go through on 4 points.
Yeah, let's remove that for a minute, just because I don't think what Japan did tonight, although ultimately led to Germany's elimination, was that important, because the German performance just wasn't good enough. They ended up scoring 4 times. They won the game. It felt very, very similar to the Japanese game that they lost in the first game of the tournament, in the sense that they started quite well. They had the bulk of the pressure and the shots on goal. They looked very, very dangerous. They got to that state where they seemed to feel okay with squandering chances, because it got to a stage where, there'll be another one, there'll be another one, and there'll be another one. And it was very imprecise football. And then just before halftime, they were 1-0 up at halftime, but just before halftime, there's a big long ball over the top, and I'll just use the board actually for this. If I can get the pen out of the thing, because that's difficult. I won't use the board. That's not going to work at all, is it? Because someone has...
Happened to Seb.
No, don't say it. Don't say
There
it.
it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
Let's watch
There
him
it is.
struggle.
Okay, so it was really kind of wasn't a very dangerous situation at all, but there was a long ball played over the top like this, and
Like what?
like this. It was kind of a big 40-yard ball over the top, just to kind of the right corner.
Over whose top?
Over the top of the German defense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was there was an air shot by Raum, left back, an air shot by Rudiger, centre back,
when
left
you-
side is centre back.
I'm not doing a joke now, but when you say air shot, do you just mean they tried to kick up the ball and missed
Exactly as it sounds.
it? Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
So a clumsy, okay.
Yeah, and then it led to a one-on-one with Neuer, who made a very, very good save. What it suggested to me was that it's a Germany side that in different parts, in different departments, seems to think it's a little bit better than it really is. We've talked quite a lot about the flaws, the lack of a number 9, the absence of an established centre-back partnership. And yet you have these individual players who have so much faith in their ability that there's almost a bit of complacency in it. And the Costa Rican side that we saw lose to Spain and the one who beat Japan were very different teams. But whatever they may be, they are not a world-beating side. They're not a group of players who should be able to beat this Germany at a World Cup. And yet there was a vulnerability throughout. Like, even long before it became obvious that Germany would need to score about 6 or 7 goals to advance and would need a favour from the other game and that kind of stuff, it was very pedestrian. And the longer the game went on, I think what troubled me is there's no system. Like, in the last 10 minutes, sure, Hansi Flick is throwing on players. So on came Goetze, on came Füllkrug. Kai Havertz came on and actually played very well. Kai Havertz had a pretty good last 20 minutes.
He scored a goal, didn't he?
He did. He scored 2 goals, set one up. He set up a tap in for Füllkrug as well to make it 4-2. The trouble was that there was never any clear idea. There was never any suggestion they were doing anything other than just throwing their full weight at Costa Rica and hoping, sort of like a kind of footballing pinata, to break them.
Do you think that's kind of normal? And because I think they have a very clear system, and it's interesting actually for this game that he changed it. So like what he changed for this game, and because obviously you've watched all the games, so like Kimmich started in the middle usually with Goretzka, with Gundogan, because Goretzka wasn't there, and the right back was who started the first game at right back?
So Sule started the first game,
Sule,
and then
right,
Kara started the second.
That's right, and then they had the Slotterbeck, who there we go. So the idea, I think, was very much like what Italy were doing at the Euros, because Raum's a very attacking fullback, so he goes very far up the pitch.
Yeah.
Then the centre backs basically go from a 4 to a 3. Then you've got Gundogan and Kimmich stopping that, blocking it, so they've got a 3-2. Then what you get out the pitch is Sané, Müller, Musiala, and Gnabry, and Raum are your front 4 or 5, joined by one of Gundogan or something like that.
It's the kind of 5 ahead of the ball thing, isn't it?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, exactly.
5, yeah. So
like it's very common for teams to do a 3-2-5 or a 2-3-5. It's the most common shapes. And then when it's a 3-2-5, it very easily becomes a 2-3 if someone joins the midfield, and then the other players go around to keep this shape. And that's the kind of shape you see Man City in, like a 2-3-5 most of the time with inverted fullbacks. So there's different ways of doing it. But then for this game, it changed it. Obviously didn't like how this is working. It wasn't functioning the way it maybe should have done, possibly because they don't have that focal point at the top. We talked about that before in different podcasts. So Sule goes into defence, and Slotterbeck's away with Rudiger, and so then what you've got is Kimmich goes to right back, and then Goretzka is a different profile of player. More box to boxy, not quite as intricate. So I think your link between defence and midfield is maybe not the same, but you're also not getting enough out of the 4 up top. So like the system's I think it's quite clear. You want these guys to rotate and swap position and be able to dance around to free someone up. They were relying on Raum, and people just started putting a guy on Raum to stop him, and then that becomes less of a threat as soon as you do that. And then at the end of the game, like you're saying, then it becomes a bit of chaos, and they don't have much shape to it. But it's the lack of urgency. Like I think that's what you're saying. There's just no urgency to them. There's no
to an extent. I mean, I would say that this doesn't work. This little group of 4 players at the top of the formation, which actually you see for Bayern Munich. So the whole idea when Sadio Mane came to Bayern Munich was, instead of having the big pivot and Robert Lewandowski playing as a 9, you had this kind of rotating cast of forward by committee, essentially. Now, what I saw tonight was this in principle, but in reality, yes, there's a lot of dependence on Raum down this left-hand side. At the same time, the German plan this evening was really, let's hope Musiala can do something. He has become... You know when a sort of a kind of 6-7 out of 10 team comes to the World Cup and they have one star player with whom you trust everything, like he becomes your entire offensive system. So you give the ball to Musiala in kind of position 10 yards outside the penalty box, hope he can drift inwards and create something, cause a kind of fracture in the defense and cause space for other people. Or you want him, I mean, twice this evening, I saw him pick the ball up in the edge of the box, and there must have been, I don't know, 5, 6 Costa Rican defenders. Musiala is a brilliant one-on-one player. He's going to be one of the best players in the world for a very, very long time. But if your system depends on giving him the ball again and again and again and again, like, that's great that you have someone who's that gifted, but it also means that all these other parts aren't really working. Yeah, Gnabry scored a goal, but Gnabry is nowhere near the player for Germany that he was a year ago for Bayern Munich. Sané had a really difficult first season in Munich, has actually had a pretty good recovery. Sané was not as effective as he can be at any point during this World Cup. Goretzka got taken off. Gundogan got taken off again. I don't understand that, because Gundogan has consistently been Germany's best midfielder in this tournament, I think. And the other problem with Kimmich plays at right back. Hansi Flick actually said before the tournament, in answer to sort of concerns about Germany's creativity, like, what can we do to kind of fit another creative player in here? And one of the options is Kimmich goes to right back, because he's such a brilliant ball striker and creator from that position. Said he wasn't going to do that. Get to a point 3 games in the tournament where that becomes the only option. And what you get is, like, Germany want to do a couple of things. So they want to see Kimmich on the ball, sort of about level with the edge of the penalty area, maybe 35, 40 yards outside of the box. And you want to see him playing crosses in a kind of like almost like a Kevin De Bruyne shape, Joe. And looking for a Müller or perhaps a Gnabry or a Füllkrug if he's on. The trouble is, the more involved you need Kimmich to be, the more you create this absolute gulf of space behind him, because the system doesn't really work well enough to cover that. And I don't know what I feel about Germany. I live there. I don't necessarily have an affinity with the football team, beyond them being, being made to feel very welcome. Thank you, Germany. It's my adopted home, sure. But
that's funny. That's not what you say when the cameras are off.
No, but I'm just playing a character.
Always talking about it, isn't he?
Always.
Some crazy thing.
He hates Germany.
I was super disappointed with this German performance. They won.
Do you feel it a bit now, though? Seriously, though, now that you live there, and you at least,
because
regardless of whether you have an affinity with the team or not, you live amongst people and friends and neighbours who do have that affinity. You can understand better how they would respond.
Because I it matters to me in the sense that my wife is German, my father-in-law is German, my brother-in-law is German, my mother-in-law is German. Well, my mother-in-law my mother and father-in-law moved to Germany and sort of are right behind the German national team. But and so I anticipate their response to it, and I also
which will be
very, very negative.
Yeah.
As a glance at the family chat group will probably reveal.
Oh, you got a family chat group?
We do, yes.
Man, do you know I've missed it? I'm not in one of these things. You in the family WhatsApp group?
Yep.
Good Lord.
Also, my little nephew. It's nice.
Oh no.
Football is very important to Germany.
Pictures of children? No.
Still Jacob, he's all right.
It's by far the most popular sport in Germany. It matters. It's like it's like the Canadians losing ice hockey. It's the same principle. And also English people can relate to this because it's really the same. When you suffer a defeat, when you're eliminated in the group stages of World Cup, you have this kind of very pervasive demand for change, which becomes very boring and it takes a long time to correct because I think one of the roots of this German performance, this German display throughout this World Cup, and also what happened in 2018 is Germany not quite producing the right kind of players. We talked about, if anybody hasn't read it, do read Rafa Honigstein's Das Reboot, which is an account of what happened following the German football team's failure in Euro 2000 and the kind of structural issues and the kind of prevailing beliefs which were kind of fallacies. And we're kind of approaching that territory too because where is the next Germany number 9? Where's that player coming from? Where are the centre halves? Okay, Schlotterbeck's a good player, but is that the future of the German national team in the sense of what we know Germany to be? They are a footballing powerhouse, and yet they look like a kind of I'm not sure quite what the comparison would be, but they are less than themselves. This is not what it should look like.
I won't disagree with this, even though Seb knows the team far better than I do.
Lives in the country, watched the game, knows the team.
I'd love to hear you disagree. I'm going to go in studs deep anyway, right?
Go for it.
So I think this is a great team. I think Germany have a really good team with excellent players. I think Kimmich is one of the better German players I've ever watched play properly.
Completely agree.
I think Gundogan's brilliant. I think Gnabry, Muller, Sané, Musiala, all of them would easily get in the England squad, for example. What I think we've seen is that I think tactics are very important, but what really, really drives you in World Cups is the energy, the determination, eggs, both owl and lizard, many kinds of eggs. But the energy, determinism, and the what's the word I used earlier, the urgency to make things happen. So, and I'll link this to England actually again, is that one of the things I think Gareth Southgate might actually get right. They're so boring to watch England, but England don't push up and leave the kind of space that Costa Rica were able to exploit or that Japan were able to get in behind. They don't do it because they make it so boring. So they would have Süle and Rudiger sticking back. Raum wouldn't go up and overlap. Kimmich wouldn't go up and overlap. Goretzka and Gundogan would sit back the entire time. And then you just rely on these four to do something. The four being Musiala, Muller, Sané, and Gnabry in the final four. And then because there's only four there, it means that someone like Costa Rica can push up a little bit further. And then by pushing up further, you leave a bit more space in behind, which means you might be able to do a bit more, maybe rely on a set piece or something like that. And it might just be that luck wasn't with them, definitely, but it might also be the game management is not, tournament management is not there.
But okay, that I actually do agree with. I think there's a big kind of tactical shortfall that's appeared in this German performance throughout the tournament. What I also say is, if you look at the goals they conceded this evening, that is not a tactical deficiency. They didn't come from space being left anywhere. It didn't come from a kind of a failure in game management. It came from individual mistakes. The second Costa Rica goal, which briefly looked like it was about to knock out Spain as well. Yeah, it's a big ball. I will use the board just to show this. I won't move the players because that'll take too long. It's a free kick from this kind of position.
What kind of
which
position?
Is far on the left-hand side, close to the touchline. It's swung into the penalty box, sort of right over to the far post, but still probably about 12 or 13 yards away from the goal. And Germany have 3 different opportunities to try and clear it. 3 different players miss their headers, and eventually it goes in because I forget who it was. I think it was Costa Rican player who'd never scored an international goal before.
Right. I'll find out who it was.
83 appearances, something. It was his first international goal.
Was it the first or second goal?
It is the second.
Okay.
So it was a succession of individual mistakes. And to me, like, I think one of the things that...
Oh, isn't that, he was given an own goal for Neuer?
Fine. That's harsh because Neuer didn't really do very much wrong for it. But okay, that's also harsh on the player that scored because it's his own international goal. But to
Juan
me...
Pablo Vargas?
Possibly.
Okay, you carry on.
So to me, like, I think one of the sort of observations I made about a side like Senegal in this World Cup is you've got a really good goalkeeper and you've got a really good centre half in front of him, and that kind of breeds a level of security in the defence. So it's a sort of a structural like strength of that side. Germany have all these individuals in a sort of golden generation of England sort of way. Doesn't really fit together very well, even though you can observe the individual quality. Like, completely agree. Kimmich is a brilliant footballer. Goretzka, great. Gundogan, great. Musiala might well win a Ballon d'Or one day. Like, these are very good players. One or two in the
chat are making comparisons between England and Germany for the same reasons you are, by the way.
Yeah, this reminds me of watching England in about 2006. Like, it should be good, but it's not.
That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
And this is the thing where what Southgate's got. They've got a good team now, sure enough. England have a good team. But if they didn't win these games in tournaments, you'd be thinking, oh, it's just a waste of good players like this Grealish and Foden. You know, like they used to have all these good players like Emil Heskey and Peter Crouch and who's other good England players? Gareth Barry.
You used to have players who, like, you should be able to get a tune out of Stuart Downing at international level, or, you know, like, it just never quite worked. Like, you had your stars and they were always going to be picked. That the stars didn't really fit together. It was like a jigsaw that you had to just bang down with a hammer and kind of to make something vaguely pretty out of. And Germany are the same. Germany won't win another World Cup until they start producing centre halves and centre forwards.
Okay, well,
again.
Nuno in the chat, comment.
Yes.
Flick out. Tuchel in.
No. I think Hansi Flick is a really good coach. I just think it's a bigger issue than just change the coach. I think that's another similarity.
You tell the camera. Tell Nuno in the camera.
No, because I don't want it to be accused.
Tell Nuno directly.
It's a very good question. But again, not to labour this England comparison, but it's the same issue that England had for a generation, which is when it's not going well, change the manager, get a new guy. It's only till you start to kind of target the roots of production and the type of footballer that's being created. Also, you need to start having conversations about how competitive the Bundesliga is, who's getting minutes and where, who's being exposed to Champions League football regularly. Like, that's the thing. To me, okay. No, there's nothing that I can't see sort of Hansi Flick being removed. I definitely don't see Thomas Tuchel as a Germany manager now.
Yeah, we just the individual errors, let the goals. There's not a manager's fault.
No, it's like also you brought in a group of players like Süle has had a disastrous season at Dortmund. Schlotterbeck's had an even worse time. Rudiger is not a first choice at Real Madrid. Like, also the core of your side is playing for Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich are like. You look at the table and you think everything's fine at Bayern Munich. I don't necessarily agree. I think they'll end up, I'm going to guess they'll end up winning the Bundesliga. At the same time, they seem a little bit stuck between cycles. They're yet to really become a Nagelsmann team. It's not as convincing week to week as it usually has been over the past decade. And that affects most of your team because, Sané is Bayern Munich player, Müller is, Gnabry is, Musiala is, Goretzka hasn't really been fit. Kimmich is Kimmich, but you're shifting him around and you're changing his kind of, changing his task within a game. It's difficult and it's not very convincing. And I think tonight is sort of, and the tournament as a whole is evidence of it not being very good.
Here's a potentially stupid question.
Yeah.
Is there a connection between Bayern Munich dominating the Bundesliga every year and the German national team not being as good as they should be?
I don't know. I'm not in a place to answer that. I don't have the data or the kind of the research to answer something like that. What I would say is that in my mind, I hope this doesn't come across as being controversial, but in my mind, like when you think of a club like, you think of Borussia Dortmund as being the nearest challenger to Bayern Munich, even though currently they're not. It feels like if you don't play for Bayern Munich, you're kind of allowed to exist a little bit beneath the radar in terms of your week-to-week performance. Bayern Munich players are held to a very high standard by newspapers like Bild because Bayern Munich's all they cover. Also, Sky Sports, German Sky Sports, Bayern Munich dominate. There are old Bayern Munich matches on every day, like the talk show, the German talk show sort of equivalent that you find on British TV. That's dominated by Bayern Munich's discussion and what's happening there in the politics. And Oliver Kahn is doing this, and Nagelsmann doesn't look happy, and he's dressing in this T-shirt rather than that one. If you play for Borussia Dortmund, it seems to me to be quite strange that Nico Schlotterbeck can have the season he has, and Niklas Süle can have the season he has, and you still start the German national team. Like it's not quite right. So there's kind of a disparity in focus. Whether like Bayern Munich winning all the time has a kind of measurable effect on the talent available to the German national team and the performance fit, I don't know. You need someone smarter to answer that, I think.
Sure. Okay. Well, a couple of points on Spain. Let's go back to Spain quickly, JJ. Because first of all, when we were talking about them at the time, little bit of how do we say this, unrest in the chat, yeah? Suggestions of the idea that Spain deliberately didn't score or deliberately lost in order to either for the fun of getting Germany out or to have an easier route through. When you watched that game, do you feel as though there was anything deliberate about
There's
that?
no way on earth that they were trying to collude with that.
Also worth pointing out that for, as we said before, 5 minutes of the second
5
half,
to 7
they were
minutes.
going out.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think that's stupid. And I think, I think it takes it away from, I don't want anyone taking away from Japan's glorious victory.
Can I, I've had 30 more seconds to think about your question. Can I add a little bit?
Do you want to carry on talking? Well, can I come back to you for?
Sure.
I've just got one more thing on Spain, and then we will
Yes,
circle
indeed.
back to you
Yes,
again.
yes.
Question from Nick Hamblin in the chat: will Spain prefer to be on the opposite side of the knockouts to Brazil? And I'm assuming that Nick Hamblin knows that to be the case.
Oh, is it Brazil on the other side of the draw now?
Because of course Spain go on to play Morocco, which I don't think is an easy game at all.
Not, no. And
Who
Morocco,
would they prefer? Would Spain prefer Croatia or Morocco?
they prefer to play against Croatia.
Yeah, okay.
Because Morocco will do a similar thing, not the same as Japan, but Morocco will sit off them a little bit. They can press higher when they want to as well, but they go with real aggression. And so if they can snap into Spain at exactly the right time when they're in transition and they're just going into their attacking shape, and they'll close down Simon and Busquets and whoever they play at centre back, probably Rodri, they can force little errors from Spain. And Spain will be a little bit scared from that Japan game because they wouldn't have expected to have lost to them and being caught in the way they would have been warned. Like in preparation for this game, Luis Enrique will have spent a week in training, or the 2 days in training, being like, this is what you cannot do. Well, actually, you shouldn't do that because you put them in their mind. You have to say, this is what you must do. You can't say to people, this is like, don't do this, because then it's in their mind and they do it accidentally.
Oh, I've lost you. You've
No,
lost
I
me.
was just.
What are you saying about people's minds?
They've lost their minds.
You have to say you must.
You must. Yeah. So if you tell someone don't think of a pink elephant, then
Damn it!
well, that classic thing. So when you're meant to be telling people instructions, you're meant to tell them like you're
Don't
trying
think Joe's the best.
So when you're teaching someone how to play football, I didn't think that oddly. When you're teaching someone to take a penalty, you shouldn't say like, don't put it too low because people will save it. You have to say you're going to put it to the top right. You're going to put it there. It's to do with visualization and things like that. So
Right.
a lot of managers will subscribe to sports psychology, and that's how sports psychologists have tended to do it. The very little I've read into it.
Is that why you've got that vision board outside with you being the king of Aberdeen or something?
Yes, the King of Aberdeen, and I have a sign that says "I believe," and I have
In ghosts.
and been leaving ghosts,
Yeah.
and various other things that I go in TikTok wormholes.
Yeah. You are the kind of person who you do love aliens.
Yeah.
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 It's live.
No, yeah, I know. Well, I like that. I like the idea that they're maybe from a different time,
Yeah.
and maybe they're not from a different.
Well, speaking
place.
of different time, we are going to circle back now to discuss with Seb. Seb, what was it that you wanted to bring up again?
No, I had a minute to think about it. Apologies because we didn't have our preparation time tonight because I was live blogging.
What question did you have? in mind
But
to
so
think
you
about?
were talking about, what is it that sort of needs to change, and do I think there's something structurally wrong with the Bundesliga or within the Bundesliga which contributes to the
because of
German
how
national team?
Bayern Munich dominated.
Yeah, and I don't think it's about Bayern Munich's domination. Like, one of the things I've seen as I try and learn German football, I'm still very much a beginner, and I'm kind of trying to get around the country and see different things and learn about different clubs. But one of the tendencies I've noticed is that there's this. In England, about 10 years ago, we were always observing the carousel of Steve Bruce's and Alan Pardew's who rotate in and out of jobs, and they're always there, and there's no new ideas. It's just the same guys doing the same jobs year after year. Germany's worse. Like, there is, it's a very, it's the right way to put it. It's very internal. Like it's very, German football doesn't necessarily embrace new ideas in the form of coaches. You see a lot of German managers. You do not see a lot of people getting jobs from outside of Germany in the Bundesliga. So when, for instance, Leverkusen appointed Xabi Alonso a few months ago, that's a big story because of Alonso, but also because Alonso is not typical of kind of the German manager identity. And I was currently Stuttgart looking for a new manager, and I read the other day that Bruno Labbadia is a candidate for that job. Labbadia was last seen at Hertha Berlin. He's a kind of relegation specialist. He's sort of he's not really Sam Allardyce, but he's that kind of character. He's managed everyone. And you think, like, that feels very typical. That feels very typical that you look at the same guys to provide the same inspiration, the same job, and you're never... I think when that happens... it's probably an accusation you could level at Dutch football too. When that happens, I think your culture, every now and again, you need to throw open the windows, is what I'm trying to say, and allow new ideas in. And I don't know if that's responsible for this, and I don't know why that is or where it comes from. I think it's partly to do with the kind of the emphasis placed on the German language. German football clubs want their managers speaking German to a really high standard, and so that might be off-putting. But at the same time, maybe one of the consequences of this is that your game doesn't quite get questioned, or it doesn't quite evolve in the way that it might do, in the way that the Premier League benefits from Guardiola, from Klopp, from Pochettino, from Eric Ten Hag now, all these different ideas. It's a big melting pot. And I understand there's more money, but at the same time,
Did Pep speak German?
Yeah, he during his sabbatical in New York, he learnt it and was when he arrived as Bayern manager, spoke it to a very high standard.
Wow.
Yeah,
Smart guy.
and it's communication is very important. Like, so when Klopp became Liverpool manager, at his first meeting with FSG, he was I think he was sold on the project, and this is actually in Rafa Honigstein's book about Klopp, Bring the Noise. But his one concern is that, do I speak the language well enough that my message can get across, and the kind of the power of my...
Because he's a message guy.
Absolutely a message guy. But I just think every now and again, it just disappoints me. A Bundesliga club sacks a coach and appoints another coach. Like when Florian Kohfeldt got sacked by Werder Bremen and then sort of failed upwards and went to, I think, Wolfsburg. Yeah. Might be wrong about that. My brain is melted. But,
it's kind of an interesting idea, though, isn't it? Because, I'm thinking two things. I miss Bielsa's translator. I loved seeing that guy's face. I liked that guy. He had a nice look about him. I enjoyed it, yeah? And I like to watch Marcelo Bielsa say something in Spanish and then to watch this guy translate it, no problem. What's he leaving out? I think that's always a bit of fun. Also, when you watch a foreign language film, I guess, a film that is where English is not the primary language spoken, they're always so much better. Yes. Because you can't tell if the actors are any good. If you don't speak the language, this is my firm belief, if you don't speak the language and you're just reading the subtitles, I honestly feel like the quality of acting in foreign language films, foreign language to me, is extraordinarily high. Because I have no idea if they're any good or not.
Well, that's also because you can tell a good actor when you don't know that they're acting.
100%.
So you see some shows and you're going, I know that guy is just from like Rada or something,
right?
He's straight out of there, and he goes.
Well, you hear the little idiosyncrasies within it that you don't hear. So I wonder if I'm thinking, putting myself in the position of a footballer, who would I be more inspired by? I suppose, obviously, as you say, communication is extremely important, but there's something very compelling about having a relationship with someone that doesn't speak the same language as you.
I guess so, but then I suppose, to me, like from the little bits that I do know, like it seems like professional football is sort of rife with insecurity, and if you don't get the opportunity to develop a close relationship with a manager, that perhaps breeds a kind of an insecurity about how that person feels about you, and how you're valued and those kind of things. It does make it more intriguing intellectually, I suppose, but it probably has some pitfalls too.
It's why I think Diego Simeone won't take a job in the Premier League, because he relies so much on bringing the fire, but he can't do that if it's translated as the warm air.
This is a nice comment. TJR 2109. Joe again makes an obvious point, thinking that he's the first person to have made it.
I mean, you were going mad at Clive earlier.
I was annoyed. What was he saying?
He was saying that nobody could have predicted possibly that Japan would have beaten Spain. Nobody in the world.
There is one person.
I'm sure there's more than one.
Well, we're on this podcast.
Hey, Clive. fantastic commentator. Not a bad word to say about him.
He's great.
Except when he said that I didn't predict that, because I did. But he wasn't talking to me.
He wasn't talking about you.
This is the kind of egocentric thing that this guy in the chat is talking about. Thinking I'm the first person that's ever said that thing.
You thought Clive Tilsley was talking to you.
I thought he was talking to me. Because...
Ego.
There's a man on the TV talking and you're watching, so therefore...
Listen, we've been talking now for a really long time, Don, haven't we? How long is that? It's 40 minutes. Let's have the first break. Oh, what a lovely break.
You got too much sugar.
No, do you know what it was? You guys were just having a thrilling debate. And I didn't want to interfere. And Seb came back in with his added 30 seconds, which turned into a 10-minute thing.
This
and
has been great. I've really enjoyed this evening's live stream.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we've had a nice,
Me too.
nice old
thing
chat.
is, though, we're going to have to talk for a while now in order that people don't feel as though a break is right at the end there, and that's a little tricky for us. But let's have a conversation now about the games from Group F. Of course, Canada versus Morocco. And I haven't written down what the scores were. Oh, Canada won, 2 Morocco. Is that right?
I've taken 2 lines of notes.
Have you? For this game?
For all these games.
Well, that's fine, because I was going to come to Seb first anyway. Morocco, Seb, through their group for the first time since 1986, only the second time in their history. And they've been tremendous, haven't they?
I've really enjoyed them, Joe.
Yeah.
Like, I think in 2018, when we might have even talked about this together, when you saw their squad list, you thought, that's fun. Can't wait to see that. And they were crushing disappointment. Mm-hmm. This is what I expected to see in 2018. A really nice combination of flair. We've talked about Sofiane Amrabat. He's been among my favourite players during the tournament. But it's really nice to see En-Nesyri play as well as he can from his time at Sevilla. Like, he's such a gifted footballer. Actually came up in a sensible transfers in about 2019. But he looked great. What a wonderful centre-forwards goal to score Morocco's second. And they deserve it. They've been excellent. They've been resilient. They've played with expression in the right areas and at the right time. I've just thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's great. It feels like, you mentioned the kind of the statistic, but they failed to get out of the group in 2018. They were eliminated in the group in 1998 and in 1994. And so this feels like a really big step forward. And I always feel also like when you have a squad built from players who are eligible to represent multiple different countries, who perhaps were born in different areas and kind of can trace their heritage back to a different place. Like, I feel it's really important that you show signs of progress, because part of your ability to attract other players and say, listen, you're from this country, your parents are, or maybe you left when you were younger, or maybe you've moved abroad, whatever. But this is a viable option for you to play on the biggest stage play international football on the biggest stage. And so when you have something like a Morocco getting through to the last 16, and I mean, who are they facing?
Croatia.
Aren't Croatia facing Japan? Did I miss that bit?
Yes, Spain.
Right. Okay. But then you wouldn't necessarily you wouldn't.
If you knew that, then you could have worked the other one out. Why are you asking me? I'm the last person who would know this.
I'm so tired.
You put me on the spot.
It
man.
was
I don't
the
know what's
confidence
happening.
with which you just said Croatia.
Well, that's
Okay, but looking at that side, you wouldn't. They're an underdog, yeah, but you wouldn't back against them. Like, they've been super, very, very effective during this tournament. And I just think this is a great advert for Moroccan football, the way they've played. And
I agree with you.
Super impressive. And also, like, if you were an aspiring Moroccan international, would you'd very much want to play in front of those traveling Morocco fans. It looks great, and it just looks, much as we said with the Australian performance yesterday, and the response that garnered back in Australia.
Yeah.
Same deal. This is what the World Cup is about.
Yeah.
Is seeing these kind of scenes and
Well, this
seeing
is
what
true.
matters.
One of our editors today, in an editorial meeting, referenced the fans that were there from different, following different teams, and said that it would be a crying shame if Morocco were to go out so early, because the Moroccan fans are there having a brilliant time.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And it's look, this is more than any other tournament in my lifetime. This has been a World Cup of big macro issues. So it's really nice to talk about the sort of the smaller moments, which are kind of your World Cup bedrock, which is goals being scored, teams doing good things, and fans celebrating. Kind of nice to be able to talk about stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Right, we added in the live chat a poll. How far can Morocco go? 50% said round of 16. 50% do not expect them to get past Spain. But 10% said finals or winners. Yeah,
It's nice.
pretty
That
exciting.
It's on the internet, so it'll happen.
I think that's how it works. Now, what's impressed you most about Morocco?
But
JJ?
Morocco, that they have a real high technical level, so they're really good players. But they play with aggression and the energy and urgency that we saw missing exactly from Germany, like we we're talking about earlier. The way they play, so they play a 4-3-3. One of the big things they've got is Hakim Ziyech, he basically retired from international football. We may have talked about this before, but they had a change of manager. Then the new manager came in, the one that's currently here, and Ziyech is back in, and that makes a huge difference. He scored the first goal tonight. The ball was passed to him by the keeper. Canada had a bit of a shocker, actually.
That was a really funny sequence of play, that.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, basically, it's a really poor pass back by, I think, Vittoria, the Canadian centre back, who passes back but doesn't put enough on it. And it gets chased down by Moroccan forward, maybe in Naziri. And so out comes the goalkeeper, but he just shanks it straight into Ziyech, who then chips him from about 35 yards. Really good finish. So having a player like Ziyech with that high technical level is important, but there's no point in having those sorts of technical players like Ziyech and Boufal up front if you don't then have real, I think aggression is the right word, and people who can get into tackles but comfortably keep the ball in the midfield. So Amrabat has been the absolute key. He plays as a number 6. He plays behind two midfielders in front of the defence, and you see him he celebrates when he wins tackles. He doesn't let anyone have a second on the ball. Then Unahi and Sabiri, decent enough in part of the midfield as well. But other thing they've got, apart from these two skillful guys up front and a bit of grit in the middle of the pitch, is Hakimi and Mazraoui are two of the best fullbacks in the entire tournament. They get really high really early to give you your width, and they're good players that can come inside the pitch as well and help create, so a bit of unpredictability there. Then the two centre-backs, Aguerd, is that how you say his name? Aguerd? What did I say his name?
Aguerd, I think.
Aguerd. Well, he's at West Ham now, right?
Yes,
so
indeed,
him and Saiss, that's two Premier League level centre-backs. There's a solid World Cup team, and because they play like a bad one, this is the thing, they play like a bad team, but they're not. And that's the thing, if we reverse it to Germany, they're a really good team, but they don't play like it.
Exactly.
Yes, there we go.
Exactly.
So if Germany play like a bad team, like what England do, they'd probably been better off this tournament. Morocco play like, I don't know, just worse than they actually are. So they're decent. And that's why I think they've got a good, because the balance is really nice and they've got a good team spirit and momentum behind them. I think they can do quite well with it. I can see them, tactically, I can see reasons why they'd be able to take Spain out. Particularly with the midfield winning the ball, turning it over, and then getting at them with Ziyech and Boufal. If they push the fullbacks forward, that might be something they do. So they'll probably sit off Spain a little bit, let them have the play that they want to, and then attack them really quickly. Maybe play a bit of a high line, catch Morata, because Morata's offside constantly. And that's why I think Morocco are real nice.
Okay, fine. We did a lot of Canada the other day, so I think let's skip over them, given how long we have talked already during this podcast. Seb,
They were fun though, weren't they?
Yeah, they were really good fun. They were really good fun. I look forward to seeing them again in 4 years' time. Croatia versus Belgium. Of course, we already know that Croatia have gone through. We spent a fair amount of time talking about them too. Belgium, Seb, just thoroughly disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, reminded me a little bit of Mexico in the sense that for the last maybe 30 minutes of this game, you suddenly had a little glimpse of what Belgium might have been in terms of their energy and their chance creation.
Lukaku arrived as well.
Lukaku arrived. And should we talk about Lukaku actually? Because I feel like he's being unfairly flogged a little bit. I just feel like he missed some chances, but he's been out for a very long time. He's played very little football. Of the chances he missed, I think only really one of them was an actual sitter. It's probably the header that went over the top.
It wouldn't have counted anyway, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't have counted anyway. The ball actually was shown to have gone across the goal line, so it wouldn't have mattered. But also,
that
I think
one that hit his chest was like, how is he supposed to finish that?
But
it looks like it's an obvious goal because it hits him near the goal line and the goalkeeper's not there. But
I agree with Seb. I think if Lukaku had been playing and scored 8 goals in his last 14, he puts that in because he just knows where to put his chest at the time. Because it kind of comes to him, you can't react that way.
Yeah.
When it comes off his leg, there's nothing you can do about it.
Also, the one that comes off his chest, he's expecting Lovren to make the clearance. So actually, his weight is distributed in a way that he's kind of anticipating a little bit of a touch, maybe a deflection off Lovren. Lovren misses it, and it's kind of a defensive clanger, actually. And it comes to him far quicker than he can respond to. And I just feel this is a bit of a feature of what happens when Lukaku misses chances. It's just like people really go after him. And
people go after Lukaku just generally.
it's not great. And also, I think
it's all. Can I make the point that almost all of this is based off transfer fees, which is funny anyway, because if you were going to base it off money, it would be wages instead of transfer fees.
100%.
That's really stupid. And also, it's not the players' fault how much money they are bought for by another club. It's just not. Like, people talk about it as though, oh, Lukaku thinks he's £100 million player. Lukaku may think nothing of the sort. He hasn't had nothing to do with that. Like, it's so annoying.
It's just what clubs are willing to pay for him.
He does think he's quite good. Like,
But I think he is a pretty good player.
Professional athletes
you have to
should do that.
You have to have the arrogance to play that role. That's the whole point. Good ones do. You think like Batistuta didn't think the same when he was playing.
I think sort of Southwest is really important to Romelu Lukaku. It always feels like his best form has always coincided with being in a place where he feels appreciated and loved. In the same way that when he was at Inter Milan, the first time he was at Inter Milan when they won the title with when he's playing alongside Martinez, he was absolutely brilliant, and he was the focal point. He was everything to that team. He was fantastic that year.
Perfect foil having Martino there. Lautaro next to him, because he does all the defensive work that Lukaku doesn't, and so he could play exactly how he wants in a league that suits him exactly.
Yep. Absolutely, and conversely, when you put him in a team where things aren't quite built around him, and when he's in a position to kind of receive criticism, and that's kind of typically happened at Manchester United and at Chelsea when he returned to Chelsea, you see that there's actually quite a fragile person there, and so I have a lot of sympathy for him. And also, he's only on the pitch because Belgium are in a desperate situation. He's not fit enough to be in that side at the moment, because if he was even close to being fit enough, he would start, because there's a gulf between him and Michy Batshuayi.
The really clever thing he did, I said to you weren't here. Were you? I can't remember. They had a free kick, I think, or maybe an attack. I can't remember what they were doing basically. But Lukaku was playing off the top, and he took, so the ball was coming in over the top, and he basically grabbed the defender's shirt and pushed him towards the goal so that he'd be onside. And because
really clever.
He's a big lad, Lukaku, right? He's got the strength to do it, and that's the thing. I feel with Lukaku as well. It's almost like, I remember watching that video he did with Jamie Carragher, and he was teaching him how, like, he wants someone to be next to him because he can feel where he is, so he can spin him and get around him. And he's really quick to turn. Like, for a big guy, he can spin really quickly. But it always seems to me like his touch lets him down at the wrong times. It's not like Luka Modric, where the ball goes in and just sticks, or it's just dead, right? As soon as you fire it like at him with a cannon and it's dead. Whereas Lukaku, sometimes his touch is perfect, and sometimes it's not, and it's that inconsistency which is kind of hurts him. And then when a few of those happen in a row, it must get in your head. Then you don't trust your touch, and then you don't make the same runs, you don't make the same things you want to do.
Did I watch this video with the other day of was it the Spain team in practice? They dropped a ball from a drone and watched them all try to control it?
No, well, that sounds really
It's really cool. Yeah,
I want to watch that.
It's the players you would. I think it was the Spain team. It's the players you would expect who kill it dead.
Yeah, like
and
Pedri,
but most of them, and these, bear in mind, these are obviously professional footballers, better than everyone else in the world. Most of it's bouncing off left, right, and centre. But it's really. I'll try and dig it out afterwards.
I want to see that. Well, that's the thing. That's what I think makes great footballers, is the first touch. You can just tell that it's just natural. It's like Messi looks like he was just born in the matrix of football, where it can't bounce off like a video game.
Do you remember the video games in like the mid-90s where
it was Brazil? The chat's reminding me it was Brazil. I'll dig that video out. Yeah.
When you used to pass
every time,
like when you used to pass the ball between your players, like it just became part of your player. Like it wasn't controlled; it was just part of your player's body, so that you had like a football-shaped growth on the end of your foot, and it's like that. The touch is so good that it's like he kind of consumes the football. It's very strange, but brilliant.
Yeah. Well, Belgium are garbage anyway, so
I won't miss Belgium.
Okay, and we've got our best man John McKenzie on the case, looking into the FIFA ranking system with the potential of making a video.
Yeah, he was very excited about that.
Hey,
sure he was.
One more thing that we were talking about Lukaku's chances.
I should just finish off by saying we say that because Belgium are technically ranked second in the world by FIFA.
I see. Yeah. I see. I just wanted to extend some praise to Guardiola, because one of the Lukaku chances was denied by probably what will end up being the tackle of the tournament. Just ridiculous.
I felt very
what
smug
a defender
during this World Cup, because at one point somebody said, Guardiola, of course, a player that is going to be on lots of people's Christmas lists or whatever afterwards, and I thought, I knew about him before.
Yeah, you did,
because I had nothing to do with it, but because he was on Tifo Sensible Transfers, and you guys and friend of the podcast, our friend has been talking this person up for a very, very long time.
Loves him, and quite rightly so. He looks extra fierce with his face mask as well, but he does everything well. Like I think his defensive attributes are pretty plain to see, but just a great ball carrier as well, like just a good footballer all over the pitch.
Fantastic.
And left-footed and really excels in that kind of outside centre-back position, which probably makes him much more valuable as well.
Okay, let's have another break, and then when we come back, we'll do a tiny bit more, and we'll play Points Bad. Yes, okay. What a lovely break we just had. Now, quickly, Roberto Martinez asked after the game whether he wants to stay as a Belgium national team coach. Now is not the moment, he said. What do we make of that?
That means no.
It means also that about an hour later, it was revealed that he has departed.
Great. The plan is right up to date, I see.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
there you go. Let me just hold on. We're on
I didn't
YouTube.
even know that, but
I
there
should
you
do a
go.
live reaction to that. Say it one more time.
So about an hour.
Roberto Martinez has resigned.
I don't know if resign is the right word, but they have. He will no longer coach the Belgian coach side.
Read all about it. Okay, he will no longer coach
Yeah,
the Belgian team.
he is done. I don't know what the circumstances are around that. I saw that break on. You can read about it on the Athletics. We've got a story about it that went out about an hour and a half ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. You hear the news?
Yeah, I didn't hear it, but I did now.
I don't know either.
From the Athletic. Okay, cool. Well, that's Roberto Martinez. I guess there's nothing really left to do except play Points Are Bad, unless either of you have anything you want to talk about. Japan, Croatia, Morocco, Spain. We'll come to do our predictions for those the days before, of course. Anything else you want to say?
Just like football.
You like football.
Well done,
It was
Japan.
a good day.
Well done, Japan. Just because I think like when you face a team like Spain, there's a temptation just to accept, right, we're out, because you've seen it happen in the past.
Except what?
Well, you can kind of accept that you're out.
I watched a bit of last night's live stream back with Seb last night, and I thought you could make a really long compilation out of Seb's noises. Yeah, he does make some good ones.
Yeah.
Oh.
Clip it up,
Anyway,
everyone, if you're watching. Clip them up.
You were saying good stuff about Japan there.
I just think it's healthy to see this happen. Like you see, World Cup, different teams from different parts of the world. It's not always the same sides winning. It's not predictable. It's a good thing. It suggests there's a kind of a healthy future in amongst like super leagues and nonsense and blah, the rest of it. So it's just nice to see. Morocco through, Japan through. Great. Fantastic.
Okay, cool. Right, well, let's put all our headphones on so we can listen to a nice song. And producer Don, we're ready for a special version of Points Are Bad when you are. Is it playing in over here? Is it over? The song is over. Unfortunately, we couldn't hear that. But we did listen to it earlier. I hope you all heard it. It came, of course, off the internet, as all good things do. Ban Summers on Twitter sent that song into us. So assuming you heard that, Ban Summers, thank you very much. We very much enjoyed that.
That was
to hear a
lovely.
version of
I
it.
really enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, really, really good. Okay, fine. Lovely stuff. Well, thank you, Ban. Now, to the meat of the matter.
Elliot Smith, Points Are Bad. That's very clever.
Listen, guys, we're done with praising Ban now. Ban has had his time, and let someone else have their time. Oh. Best game day of the... You get back here now. You listen to me. You listen. Hey, you've won every game. You win every day. I have had the best game day. Not just in separation from all of you who did poorly. The best day in points overall of all time. On 4 games.
You joking?
I gained 3 points
On
today.
4 games.
On 4 games, I gained 3 points. I am a hero. I'm the people's hero. And as a result of that, when we come to the grand totals later, you're going to find
That you're
that you won't
last
sleep
by
so
less.
easy tonight,
Yes.
except Stafford Bloor. Now listen, I had a great day today. I had 2 perfect scores, of course. I predicted perfectly that the Morocco-Canada result, and of course the Japan-Spain result, the big one, the one Clive said I didn't. I did,
really
Clive.
good.
I did.
It's a great shot.
I got it. I've overindulged myself now. Let's go back to normal. Well, listen, I finished on 3 points. Next place, John, 9. And then Seb on 10. And then JJ on 12. You had a terrible day.
Oh, dear.
A terrible day. Now, did John send me a...
I can't believe you refer to yourself as the people's hero.
Did I say that? The people's hero. Oh, John was so prepared. He sent them to me over 2 hours ago. Fine, okay. Right, so let us do our predictions for tomorrow. I will, of course, go last as the people's hero. JJ, you... the people's hero. JJ, you will go first, followed by Seb, followed by
the people's
John.
loser?
As the people's loser.
All right.
It's only going to happen once. I'm enjoying it.
The villain.
Now, Ghana Uruguay is the first game to choose, please, JJ. And let's bear in mind the context of this. I think we mentioned this when Kiva was on the podcast last night. But of course, do you remember? Was it the last time that these two met in a World Cup? Luis Suarez handballed the ball off the goal line.
2010.
2010
Yeah.
Uruguay. I remember watching that game. So, I assume
2-3.
you think Ghana 2,
Yeah.
Uruguay 3.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Seb Stafford-Bloor?
I'm going to say 1-0 Uruguay.
1-0 Uruguay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know where you guys are getting these goals from because Uruguay have been so bad. But it's John to pick next. John says Ghana Uruguay. Ghana 0, 2 Uruguay. I mean, again, leave it to the people's hero, guys. Ghana 2, Uruguay 1. Oh, there we go.
Oh my God.
Now, Korea, Republic, Portugal. JJ, let's begin with you.
Yes. Well, I like not going first because then I can find out what the team's looking like.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be a 1-2.
You think 1-2 Korea, Portugal?
South Korea 1, Portugal 2.
Okay, fine. Seb Stafford-Bloor?
Oh, yeah. I will say 2-1 South Korea.
You think 2-1 South
Yeah.
Korea? I'm inclined to agree with you, actually. I think Portugal have been fairly poor. John has suggested 1-0 Portugal. I'm going to go for 1-0 South Korea. I think Portugal have been very, very slow. South Korea, they were good in that. They were good in the last 10 minutes of that last game. The bit I saw. Other than I'm the people's hero. Serbia, Switzerland. JJ Bull, what do you think?
I think that I like Serbia, and so therefore I will say Serbia to win
Yeah.
by...
You're the worst at going first. Come
Yeah.
on, man. Just say a score.
No. I'm doing a score right now. I'm doing a score.
Look how seriously he takes this game.
3-0.
3-0.
Why am I doing that?
Serbia 3-0. Okay, I'll accept it.
It's because
Seb
I've got
Stafford-Bloor.
bored of the other thing.
I will say 2-1 Switzerland.
You think 2-1 Switzerland? I agree. I think Switzerland are going to win that game.
Yeah, I like
John says 0-1 to Switzerland.
Oh no, I've just thrown it all away, and I always do this. It's always the mental side of it I give away.
These are
isn't it?
final group games, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Do you know what? I'm going to go for a 2-2 in this one. I think that's right on the money.
Make it fun.
Okay, Cameroon, Brazil, JJ. This is the final game for tomorrow. Cameroon, Brazil.
Are Brazil through?
Yes.
Yes. Then I think, I don't know, 1-3.
You think 1-3? I think that's a pretty good shout. Seb Stafford-Bloor, Cameroon, Brazil.
I will say 0-2 Brazil.
0-2 Brazil. Okay. John has requested a 3-0 to Brazil. And I will be going for a 1-1. Lovely job. Okay, fine. That is points are bad for tomorrow. Now, let me just tell you the grand totals. I am still last as the people's hero.
Yeah.
I am still last. However, the gap significantly less than it was yesterday. I'm on 102 points, having gained just the 3 today. Yes. In second to last place.
I've crossed the 3-digit threshold though now.
But someone else has too.
Is it John McKenzie?
It's John McKenzie. He's on 100 points. He gained 9 today, of course. Seb Stafford-Bloor, 96. You did okay. That was okay. 4 ahead of John. And now just 4 ahead of Seb Stafford-Bloor is JJ Bull on
Second
92.
place is
There's
second
only 10
winner.
points between first and last, guys. Just 10 points. And as we've seen today, that can be turned.
And I've got bored of going a bit doolally from all the football, and I've started to then put in stupid scores rather than what I actually think.
Yeah. Good. That's about right.
Well, that's better for the game,
It's
isn't
time
it?
that you stopped cheating anyway, and just saying 1-1 for everything.
How's
and
that
1-0.
cheating?
It's so boring.
I was not cheating. I was getting the right
Yeah,
results.
well, no, fine. It's not cheating, but it's against the spirit of the game. We all know it, and we all know that winning is more important to you than playing in the spirit of the
Well,
game.
as the real people's champion, the champion of the people,
Hmm.
I know that what they want is entertainment, and what they wanted is me to predict everything correctly at
Sure.
the start, and then be stupid.
Before you
Champion,
as is my
champion of
Tifo character.
entertainment.
before,
Yeah,
Champion of entertainment. And
that's what
the
I am.
people's
Champion of
hero.
entertainment.
yeah.
Very, very modest.
It's interesting that that's a bit like various different honors, isn't it? That you can have by given different countries. I'm the hero of the people. You're the champion of the people. It's not really clear what the difference between those two
I
things
think mine's
is.
better. Oh no,
Yeah,
push the wrong button.
fine. Okay, cool. Well, anyway, I'll bask in it for just a moment longer. You've written Seb a number of times on the board, haven't you? There. That's right. For the video people watching. Audio people won't be able to see that, will they? But
No.
can you describe what you've done for the audio listeners?
Written Seb's name as many times as I could on the board.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you,
then you
but, yeah.
scribbled all over it, haven't you?
Well, that was because Seb was trying to stop me doing it earlier.
Oh, Seb was scribbling. This is the result of the battle.
yeah,
It's quite nice, isn't
you
it?
gave up early.
Collaborative
Abstract.
artwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, very abstract.
You can
indeed.
spell that as an NFT.
Well, I certainly think it says a lot about both of you. But there we go. JJ Bull the Bullard, thank you. Seb's Halford's Floor.
Thank you, Joe Devine.
Thanks as usual to Don and Jamie over there in the corner, and editor Nathan, who reminded me personally the other day that I don't thank him at the end of the podcast. Thank you, Nathan.
To you most of all.
Yeah, mainly to you. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow with John Mackenzie, the Goblin's hero.
Historic.
The Goblin's hero.
Until
Here
then,
he comes.
see you later, everybody. Bye, bye, bye. Bye. The Goblin's hero.
Should give him a little hat and a sword or something.
You should, yeah.